Welcome back to video 3 for training your virtual pet. Last lesson we were experimenting with the coordinate system and the color system as we were drawing text in different locations on the screen. Today I want to introduce the idea of working with variables and loops. So we're going to teach our CYD device how to count. So let's start by having a number. And to declare this as a variable is, right, as simple as that. I give it a name and then I set it a value. All right, define a variable called number, set the value 0. And that's all that's doing, okay? And so then number is this thing that Python has stored in its memory that I can then ask it, hey, you know that thing I asked you to remember? I want you to do this with it. And it will then automatically look up and know that we're referring to something with the value of 0. In the same way, if I was to ask you what your email address is or your date of birth is, right? Your brain has a number or a value associated with that reference. And that's what we're doing here. We're saying, hey, have this value, have it, and keep it associated with this reference. And we can ask it to update it in the same way that if you change your email address or your phone number or something like that, what you mentally store against that name would get updated as well. And so I'm going to loop through this number. Well, first let's show this number on the screen, shall we? So display.drawText, and let's do this in the middle of the screen. So 160 and 120, and we then put in the text. And I can there's a couple of different ways I can do this, but the way I'm going to teach you to do this for number, well, actually I'll show you why this won't work first. If I just say, hey, put number at this location, and then I give it a font, and then I give it a color. So colors, let's just use white, and then colors, a black background. Right, this is going to crash. Okay, and we get a type error, int object isn't iterable. Right, so the error meaning is not very helpful as to what's going on. But basically, this Python treats numbers differently to how it treats text. So I could have another variable, and you'll remember that we were using the quotations earlier on to indicate the start and the end of the piece of text. If I was to put that variable here, this would work. But because what I'm wanting to use is a number, Python recognizes that numbers are different to text. And so what we need is actually a way to tell Python, hey, I actually want to see the text representation of that number. So I'm going to put in a set of quotes with the lowercase f out the front on the left hand side of it. And then for the piece of text, I'm going to say to Python, insert whatever the value is from this, not from name, from this number. Right? And so I can have a piece of text like any other piece of text. The number is, this is probably going to go off the edge of the screen, so let's just move it to the left. Right. But then if I use the squiggle, the curly braces, and then I can put a variable inside those curly braces, and it will substitute the value from that variable in that location. That's provided I have the f at the start of my left quotation mark. Right, so if I now run that, it will say the number is 0. Okay, so that's how we can get numbers to display on our screen. Okay, so I have this number 0. What can I do with it? Well, we can perform calculations with it. So let me just show you something that mathematically, doesn't make sense. Right? In math, you can't say, x equals x plus 1. That just doesn't make sense in math. But in computing, this does make sense because what we're actually asking the program to do is two different things, right? This is the variable that we want to store it in, and then this is a calculation that goes on the right, and it goes right. So it goes treat the equal sign as an assignment operator that performs the calculation on the right, and then stores it in whatever name I have given the result on the left. So, right. So this doesn't have to be number. This could have been answer is equal, right? And that might make more sense. We're saying look up the number, add 1 to it, and then save it back into answer, right? And then I could print out the answer is, right? But what I'm doing by putting number there is I'm basically I'm overwriting whatever was previously a number. And Python's smart enough to know to do this in 2 steps. So it will look up the value of number first, see that it was 0, it'll add 1 to it, give us the value 1, and then store that back into number. And so now if I copy and paste this same piece of text, not making any changes to it, hang on, copy, paste, and all I'll do is I'll come down 1 line, and you'll see that it has updated to show that there we go, the number is 0, that line is still unchanged, and then this calculation happens, and then it shows that the number is now 1. Fantastic. So let's get this happening inside a loop. Right. Maybe I want to count to 10. This is a kind of loop called a for loop, and we use this when we know how many times we want to loop through. So let me show you how this works. For number in the range from 0 up to but not including 10. All right, so that's an important distinction. All right. For the variable name, right, in the range of the first value, right, up to not including final value. Oops. Okay, so that's what's happening there with this for loop. And then to let Python know what code I want happening inside that loop, I indent it. So I just hit the tab key, and that's how Python will know which things to keep doing inside the loop, and then when I unindent the loop is over. Alright, so I don't even need to increase number myself, because what's going to happen here, Python's going to do this for me automatically. Number is going to start at the value 0, then it's going to have the value 1. Right, so number, Python knows whatever I put here, Python will create as a variable of its own. Right, so it's going to create number, and then it's going to give it the values 0, and then 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7, and then 8, and then 9. And then it's going to stop because it goes up to but not including 10. So if I actually want it to show 10 on the screen, I have to make it have an 11. Now, let's save and run this code, and you can see there that it counted from 0 up until 10 and then stopped. Right? And then once the loop finished, it then said the loop is over. Now maybe that happened too fast and I couldn't quite see what was happening on screen. So let's import something that we can use to put in a delay. So I'm going to import uTime. Okay, and this is our time library in MicroPython. If you're using regular Python on your laptop computer, then you just import time rather than uTime. And what I'm going to say here is uTime sleep, so tell Python to have a little bit of a nap for 1 second. And so then let's make it more dramatic. I'll make it 3 seconds. All right, and so because I've got it indented, that's going to happen every step of the loop. So now if I run it, all right, 0, it waits 3 seconds, and then it increases to 1. Now it waits another 3 seconds, and then it increases to 2, then another 3 seconds, and then 3, another 3 seconds, 4. We can also use loops to, we don't just have to use it for our text here. We can use loops to draw things at different locations in the screen, right? Because these things here, our coordinates, they are also just numbers. So I'm just going to get rid of that timer. Well, I'll make it, you can put in like 0.5 for half a second. So let me show you what I mean here. Let's draw things at different locations of x, right? So for x in the range of 0 through 2, so how many x values do we have? We've got 320. So I'm going to say, let's draw to 32. So that's going to give me the values of 0 to 31, right? And I'm going to say, okay, draw at that x location, but times it by 10. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to draw something at the x locations 0, then 10, then 20, then 30, then 40. And that's because, you know, I want to be able to see the different things. So let's just write an x. Well, yeah, okay. If I now run that code, right, I'm going to have my counter happen first, and then I'm going to have a whole bunch of x's appear on screen like that. And you can see that they have a gap of about 10 between each one, but I still went over the edge of my screen. Right, I can increase this gap to 20 so that my x's are more clearly visible between each one, and I can use loops for my y values as well if I wanted, or anything else like that. Okay, wait for the count to finish. Okay, and now there's x's there with a bit more of a gap between them because I went for 20. All right, 20 times 300 and 20 times 32, obviously a lot more of them have gone over, as you can see here with the error messages I got. So I'm actually only going to want this to go up to about 15. All right, so what I've got happening here is we've got variables, we have counters, we have loops, and we have used a timer. All right, our variables can be numbers, and we can perform calculations on those numbers. Our variables can be pieces of text as well. All right, that's enough for this video. This is Mr. Baumgarten signing out.